The night air was thick with fog as Lily parked her car in front of the old Victorian house on Willow Street. It was the kind of house that sent shivers down your spine just looking at it, its peeling paint and overgrown garden giving it an eerie, abandoned look. But Lily wasn't here to admire the architecture. She was here to uncover the truth behind the rumors that had been circulating about the basement. Ever since Lily had moved to the small town of Willow Creek, she had heard whispers about the house on Willow Street. People said it was haunted, that strange noises could be heard coming from the basement late at night, and that anyone who dared to enter never returned. Lily didn't believe in ghosts, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. With a sense of trepidation, Lily approached the front door of the house and knocked tentatively. The sound echoed through the silent night, but there was no answer. Steeling herself, Lily tried the doorknob, and to her surprise, it turned easily in her hand. Ushing open the door, Lily stepped into the foyer of the house, her footsteps echoing off the walls. The air was thick with dust, and the musty smell of decay hung heavy in the air. But despite the eerie atmosphere, Lily pressed on, determined to uncover the truth behind the rumors of the haunted basement. As she made her way through the house, Lily couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. It was as though the walls themselves were alive, their ancient whispers filling her mind with a sense of dread. Finally, she reached the basement door, a heavy wooden affair that seemed to groan with age as she pushed it open. The air was cold and damp, and a shiver ran down Lily's spine as she descended the creaking staircase into the darkness below. The basement was even creepier than Lily had imagined. The walls were lined with shelves filled with dusty old boxes, and the floor was littered with cobwebs and debris. But it was what lay at the far end of the room that sent a chill down Lily's spine, a door covered in strange symbols, its surface pulsating with an otherworldly energy. With trembling hands, Lily approached the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what lay beyond, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the brink of a discovery that would change everything. As she reached out to touch the door, a sudden gust of wind swept through the basement, extinguishing the lone candle that flickered on a nearby table. In the darkness, Lily heard a soft whispering, a sound that seemed to come from all around her, filling her mind with a sense of unease. But before Lily could react, the door burst open with a deafening crash, sending her stumbling backward in shock. And as she peered into the darkness beyond, she saw something that made her blood run cold, a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the shadows. With a cry of terror, Lily turned and fled from the basement, the sound of her own footsteps echoing through the empty corridors of the house. But no matter how fast she ran, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was following her, something dark and malevolent that hungered for her soul. As she burst through the front door and into the cool night air, Lily knew that she had stumbled upon something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. And as she made her way back to her car, she vowed to uncover the truth behind the haunted basement of Willow Street, no matter the cost. As Lily drove away from the house on Willow Street, her heart still racing from the encounter in the basement, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Glancing nervously in her rearview mirror, she half expected to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at her from the darkness. But as she reached the safety of her own home, Lily pushed aside her fears and tried to focus on more mundane matters. She had work the next day, and she couldn't afford to let her encounter with the haunted basement distract her from her responsibilities. However, as the days passed, Lily found it increasingly difficult to shake the feeling that something was not right. She couldn't stop thinking about the strange symbols on the door in the basement, or the glowing eyes that had seemed to follow her every move. Determined to uncover the truth behind the house on Willow Street, Lily began to research its history, scouring old newspapers and archives for any mention of the mysterious basement. But the more she searched, the more she realized that the house had a dark and troubled past, one that went back much further than she had ever imagined. It wasn't long before Lily stumbled upon an old newspaper article from the 1800s detailing a series of grisly murders that had taken place in the house. According to the article, the bodies of several young children had been discovered buried beneath the floorboards of the basement, their deaths shrouded in mystery. Shocked and horrified by what she had uncovered, Lily knew that she had to return to the house on Willow Street and confront the dark forces that lurked within. Armed with a newfound determination, she set out once more, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. As she approached the house, Lily could feel the weight of its dark history bearing down on her like a suffocating blanket. But she refused to be intimidated. She was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Stepping through the front door, Lily made her way once more to the basement, her footsteps echoing off the walls as she descended the creaking staircase. The air was thick with dust and decay, and a sense of unease settled over her like a shroud. As she reached the bottom of the stairs, Lily's gaze fell upon the door with the strange symbols, the door that had been the source of so much terror and intrigue. With a trembling hand, she reached out and pushed it open, revealing a dark chamber beyond. The room was small and cramped, its walls lined with shelves filled with jars of unknown substances. But it was what lay in the center of the room that made Lily's blood run cold, a crude altar adorned with candles and strange symbols, surrounded by a circle of salt. As she stepped further into the room, Lily felt a sudden chill run down her spine. There was something in the air, an energy that crackled with malevolence, like electricity coursing through her veins. With a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach, Lily realized that she was not alone. And as she turned to flee from the room, she came face to face with the source of the darkness, a shadowy figure lurking in the corner, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. With a cry of terror, Lily turned and ran, the sound of her footsteps echoing through the empty corridors of the basement. But no matter how fast she ran, she could feel the darkness closing in around her, threatening to consume her whole. As she burst through the front door and into the cool night air, Lily knew that she had uncovered the truth behind the house on Willow Street, a truth more disturbing and horrifying than she could have ever imagined. And as she raced away from the house, she vowed never to return, lest she be consumed by the darkness that lurked within. Lily's heart hammered against her ribcage as she raced away from the house on Willow Street, the memory of the shadowy figure in the basement burning brightly in her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her like a suffocating cloak, nor the sense that she was being pursued by forces beyond her comprehension. For days, Lily struggled to make sense of what she had seen in the basement of the old Victorian house. She pored over books on the occult and consulted experts on paranormal phenomena, desperate for answers that seemed to elude her at every turn. But no matter how hard she searched, she could find no explanation for the darkness that lurked within the house's walls. As the weeks turned into months, Lily tried to put the events of that fateful night behind her, focusing instead on her work and her friends. But try as she might, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that the shadowy figure from the basement was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One night, as she lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, Lily heard a soft whispering coming from the darkness beyond her bedroom door. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, but as the whispers grew louder, she realized that something was terribly wrong. Heart pounding, Lily climbed out of bed and made her way to the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. With a deep breath, she pushed it open and stepped into the hallway beyond, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. But there was nothing, just the empty silence of the night, broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. Confused and unnerved, Lily retreated back into her room, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it possible that the shadowy figure from the basement had followed her home? And if so, what did it want from her? For days, Lily lived in fear, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched wherever she went. She tried to convince herself that it was just her imagination, that the events of that fateful night had simply been a figment of her overactive imagination. But deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. Then, one night, as she lay in bed, Lily heard a soft scratching coming from the basement below. At first, she tried to ignore it, chalking it up to the usual sounds of the old house settling. But as the scratching grew louder and more insistent, she knew that she could no longer ignore it. With a sense of dread pooling in the pit of her stomach, Lily climbed out of bed and made her way down the creaking staircase to the basement below. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay, and a sense of foreboding settled over her like a heavy blanket as she reached the bottom of the stairs. And then, she saw it, a shadowy figure lurking in the darkness, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. With a cry of terror, Lily turned and fled back up the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest as she raced towards the safety of her room. But no matter how fast she ran, she could feel the darkness closing in around her, threatening to consume her whole. And as she reached the top of the stairs and slammed the door shut behind her, she knew that she was not alone, that the shadowy figure from the basement had followed her home, and that it would stop at nothing to claim her as its own.